Pernilla Stryker is a complete powerhouse. Fitness influencer, charismatic content creator, and this girl has the best abs I've ever seen. How in the world does she do it? Well, friends, it's probably not what you think. Now, I lucked out at a conference a few months ago. I got the chance to sit next to her, and y'all know me, I'm chitty chatty. So heard a little bit of her story, her vibe, and was super impressed with her energy and resolve to not only make herself great, but also help others become the best version of themselves. In this conversation, we explored how you can become more confident in your skin and push past limits that you never thought was possible. So what does it really take to get in good shape? My friends, her answer is going to help you in almost every area of your life.
If it feels right in your soul, I believe there's a reason for it. And you are only going to experience and know what that reason is if you actually continue to go for it. And if you don't quit, writing down all the reasons why you have to stop whatever it is that you want to stop or start, whatever it is. Like, get so mad at, you don't have to be mad at yourself, but just like get so mad at this incredibly destructive habit. Put a timer for 15 minutes and write down all the ways it's ruining your life. And oh my God, it would literally save your life. What is the life that I want to live? Like, I have one chance. And how am I going to live it?
Y'all, come in. I am so excited for this conversation. In fact, I think I have just been like in your DMs, like forcing this to happen because I met you at a conference and I was telling you before, I got freaking lucky to sit next to you for 5 minutes. I didn't really get to hear too much of your story, but you know how you meet those people and you're like, that is a really genuine, good-hearted human being who gives a real shit, you know, about people and making a difference in this world. And Pernilla, when I saw you on Instagram, obviously I'm very impressed with what you've built and the waves that you're making in this world. But what's really impressive is when you can combine that with just genuineness and kindness, which I think just radiates from you. So selfishly, super selfish, I was like, I hope she can come on because I want to hear your story. I want to hear about your mindset. I'm amazed by physically the transformations that you've been able to give other people. It's something that I haven't figured out personally and is so bewildering to me. So I have so many questions for you, my friend, but thank you. What an honor it is to have you on today's show.
It is an honor for me. Thank you so much, Heather. When I met you, I just felt such an incredibly powerful, light, beautiful energy. And I am just so excited that we get to do this today.
Me too.
But thank you so much for all the kind words. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Here's the deal, friend. I can outwardly look at you, look at what you're building, and it would be instinctually easy for me to be like, well, that's nice for her. She's just cute and beautiful and in great shape, and everybody loves her, and she has all these followers. It would be very easy for me to project like this was just something that was handed to you. I don't know your story. I've heard a little bit of it just from some of the content that I've consumed of yours. And you've alluded before that you used to not feel confident. You used to not feel good in your body and stuff. And so I'd want to kind of start there because I think it lays a solid foundation that, you know, you teach a lot about you can do anything and there's a lot of possibility and you can change your life. And we hear that message a lot, but it's important to understand that the people who are preaching that are preaching it for a reason, right? So wherever you want to start in your story, but if you could give us a little bit of context about who you were before you were who you are now, you know what I mean?
It has been a journey and I feel like I'm a different person today than I used to be. I was a girl growing up in Denmark, very low self-esteem, living my life to please others.
Why?
And as we
why
know,
did you have low self-esteem?
I just did not believe I was good enough as I was. My parents were loving, incredible parents, but I'm the middle child and I didn't always feel like there was space for me. And I, as a young little kid, thinks that is, you know, because hey, I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable enough. And so I kind of like stepped back when my brothers would be loud and fun. And then because of that, because I stepped back, I, wouldn't get as much attention as maybe they would at times, because I was just
Yeah.
quiet, and I was always trying to be the nice girl, the
Yeah.
girl that made everyone happy. And because I thought that was the way to go about becoming loved in this world. And so when I grew up, I kind of continued that pattern, and it made me not believe in myself very much. But I was a dancer growing up. I danced my entire life. And when I was in that world, there was this little bubble of joy, of great energy that I could step into, tap into. And there was something about when I danced, there was this inner belief that, oh my gosh, I actually can do certain things. And it brought me so much joy. And that led me to still not feeling worthy, but having a little inner knowing that I should go somewhere with this dancing. And when I finished high school, I moved to Copenhagen, which is the capital of Denmark, to take this dance education. And there
Wow.
was a few of the teachers there who were also young, but a little older than me, that had been to LA to dance. And when they were talking about this, there was just something in me that was like, you should try this. You should try and go to LA. And so I saved up money and I made my way to LA. I got a 6-month visa. And when I came here, I just fell in love. And I met a lot of other dancers who had gotten a lot of successes within this world. And it was incredibly powerful and beautiful coming to LA, going into a dance class, feeling like I was the worst dancer in the entire world.
And you probably
But
didn't know
then,
anybody, right?
no, I didn't know anyone, but I moved into a place called Home for Dancers. So there's where I met a few dancers from all around the world
Okay.
and got to connect with them, and spending time with them, experiencing their self-belief within. It started off with dance. It kind of rubbed off on me little by little. Like I did not have a lot of the confidence at first, but seeing it in them kind of made me think, wait, if they can, maybe there's a chance that I can as well. And there was one of the dancers that was reading the self-development book, Lewis Howes, The School of Greatness,
Oh
which is
boy, that'll
we
get
met
you.
at we met at the Summit of Greatness,
Yeah.
which is Lewis Howes' event. And I read that book and I set a goal, and it made me believe in myself a little bit more, because when you step into the self-development world, it's like it's really powerful. It changes your brain. And little by little, I started believing in myself, and I grew as a dancer, but also as a person, but not to the extent that I then did when I for years had tried to actually get in badass shape. And at one point, battling back and forth between doing it and not doing it, also due to my lack of confidence, my lack of self-belief that I was capable of doing something that powerful with my body. I didn't have the identity of someone who would be able to do that. I just felt like I was someone who could do average. And once I, again, read more self-development books and got into this, I one day decided, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get in the most badass shape I've ever been in. And I committed and I did it. And through that, I realized that through challenging myself physically and staying consistent with myself, developing self-discipline, it allowed me to build this new level of self-respect and belief in myself, that when I set myself to do something challenging, I can actually believe myself and actually get up and do the work, regardless of how I feel on that day. Like if I make a promise to myself, I can actually keep it. And so through this fitness journey, on top of all these other little things that had happened throughout my journey, I started to gain this level of self-belief in myself, and that I'd always been terrified of putting myself out there. Today I do content creation full time. That's my job.
Right.
And once I got in shape, I had this, again, inner knowing, just like when I wanted to go to LA for the first time, this inner knowing that I needed to share this because it literally changed my life. It changed my confidence, my belief of what I was capable of, and it gave me more self-love. And I just had this knowing that I needed to share this, and I'd been terrified of putting myself out there. Like, I'd never loved myself. And so putting myself out there, I was so afraid of course, when you don't love yourself, when you're judging yourself, you're afraid of other people's judgments as well. But little by little, I pushed myself to put out content regardless of how terrifying it was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed consistent. I made a promise to myself. Feels so uncomfortable, but I had learned through the books I'd read that I have to get uncomfortable in order to grow. And so I pushed myself every single day. I was going to put something out, and I did. And I stayed consistent with that for years and years and years. And you were talking about it. It feels like it's just been handed to me. I just want to mention that when I first came to LA, I had such a little saving, living on like literally eating ramen, living on air mattresses, nothing. And I, had a few dance jobs. I did a little bit of modeling, and I started this content creation. But for 5 years, if not more, I was living on a rock. I made minimum
It's real. It's
money.
real.
Yeah. And I didn't even do this content creation because I think at the back of my mind, I was like, wait, I think some people are making a living off of this, but that wasn't even why I did it. I just did it because I had this intuition that I needed to share these things that I had found so much value out of doing. So it's taken a long time. We were talking before jumping on this call, we were talking about consistency, in how you have patience. Like if you're willing to if you want something to happen, you're willing to wait the 2 years to make that thing come to life, to make the puzzles fit in. And I think for me, that has also been it. It's like the patience game of continuously showing up, regardless of how much resistance you're experiencing. It's just about continuing. If it feels right in your soul, I believe there's a reason for it. And you are only going to experience and know what that reason is if you actually continue to go for it. And if you don't quit when it gets hard, because it will get hard regardless of anything we try to do in life, right? Because if we haven't done it before, we have to get a little uncomfortable. We have to get outside to where it is newness, which newness can feel challenging.
Come on.
So,
I was thinking about, the reason that it's easy to place somebody else kind of at arm's length of like, oh, well, that's, they were born in great shape, or that's easy for them, or whatever, is it puts dissonance between us and them, where there's less responsibility, or, well, I couldn't do that, right? It's easy to separate because we don't want to feel like it's possible for us almost, right? Because what does that mean then? If I'm not there, what does that mean about me? And you mentioned earlier shifting that identity. You first had to see yourself as somebody who could do this, man. Like, I get that here, but in practice, man, shifting that identity is super, super hard. I'm curious how because you work with folks all over who are different levels of fitness. How do you start tackling that identity element when they're looking in the mirror and they hate what they see, or maybe they've failed a million times before, or they're freaking stressed, or they don't have it's the thing, the list is ongoing, right? Like, where do you start with folks there?
So there's so many different ways to go about this. I'll share 2 things that have played a massive role in my life and that I've seen helped other people a lot. The first one is simple, but it is, again, like you said, it's like you have to stay consistent with it. I realized when I had tried for so long to get in shape that I kept trying to get on it, and then I would fall back into my old habits, get on it, back to my old habits. And first thing is getting clear on like, what is it that I want? Like, we can't be like, I just want to be healthier. No. What is it that I want exactly to the T, specifically?
Like measurable.
What measurable? Yeah. The SMART goals, like really go through. If you haven't looked into that, if you're someone who wants to the listeners, look into SMART goals and make sure that you really are as specific as possible, and really understand and get clear on why is it important. I think that for me, the why is what has kept me going whenever it has felt so challenging. And for me, I wanted to do fitness modeling at the time. And then now at this point, it's both because I know I feel so much better within about myself. It literally compound effects in all other areas of my life when I stay consistent with my routine. As well as today, it's also about, I got to show up, because if I don't show up, I'm not going to be able to impact anyone else to do that.
Yeah.
So like for me, my why has changed, but getting really clear on why is it so important for you. And then something that I found really useful at first is that I would wanted to be an athlete, and I would look myself in the mirror. I wouldn't see an athlete in the mirror, but I would say, you can swear, do whatever resonates with you. But I was like, Pernilla, you are beaten and freaking athlete. I would swear,
Oh, I
I would be
love
like,
that.
you are unstoppable. You are a badass. I would just like go ham on myself in the mirror. And I would do it at home. I would do it at the gym. When I didn't feel motivated, I'd be like, you are a and that subconsciously changes something in you, because what happened is, like, when I would start to continuously tell myself that I was an athlete, it's like, what would an athlete think right now? How would an athlete act right now? And that will show up in your eating habits. It will show up in your workouts. You'll go for a little bit more than you did the last time, because if you're an athlete, you're going to show up as one. And you're going to have to fake it at first, because we don't believe it, right? And for someone else, an athlete isn't going to resonate, but you can choose whatever word works for you. And that was really powerful. I would be sprinting on the treadmill, and I would be like, you're unstoppable. You can do this. Like,
I love that.
show them what you got. Like, and reminding myself of the bigger vision of my goal. Like, why is it so important? For some people, it's like, I want to stay healthy for my kids so that I can run around in the garden with them. Like, there's so many things that you can remind yourself of that are powerful, that are going to make you push yourself past the comfort zone, because your body, my body, and my brain, they're the laziest thing ever. And I had to make a decision, as I think we all have to not allow our brain, our lazy brain, our lazy body to take control. Because again, going back to the why, like, what do I really want? Do I want to be an athlete, or do I want to stay comfortable? And really make that clear to ourselves. And so one thing is the, like, telling yourself, looking yourself in the mirror and faking it at first, but like empowering yourself, being your own absolute best hype man. The second thing is very much in relation to all of this, but I started doing a morning routine. And
Come on. Yeah.
I got up really early, which you don't need to get up as early as I do, but just having that first part of your day to you, for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And connecting with yourself in whatever way that feels right to you. What I like to do is I journal. Sometimes I read, I meditate, and I really connect with, what is it that I want? What is holding me back from feeling at my absolute best right now? How can I show up in a better way for me, for the people around me? What are things that I am lying to myself about, that I got to be honest with myself about?
Yeah.
And really getting naked with yourself. Because when you do that, you create a different relationship to yourself. What I realized is I didn't have a relationship with myself. I was just kind of living. But once I started to create a relationship with myself, as we know, the people that we get close to, the more close we get, the more we start to care about them. And when we build this relationship to ourselves, maybe through journaling, for some people it's going on a walk in nature. It can be, there's so many ways that you can go about doing this. But once you start developing a relationship to yourself, you're also going to want, you can, first of all, start sharing more love with yourself. Once you actually like realize, oh my gosh, this is maybe my younger child I'm talking to sometimes, or it's my current self that is just needing a little bit of love right now, then you can give yourself what it is that you need. And also you will, as you start learning to love yourself more in that way and building this relationship, then as you go about your day, you're also going to show up for yourself differently. So if you told yourself Sunday night, this week, I'm going to eat healthy, nutritious foods because that's what my body deserves. On a Tuesday night, when your lazy brain is starting to want cookies.
Taco Tuesday, man. Taco Tuesday.
But you can have tacos. Tacos can be healthy.
Yeah, but I can't have margaritas. That's what I'm saying.
Right. But that's when, because because as we build this relationship to ourselves, we can ask ourselves, wait, what would actually be good for me right now? And sometimes that's going to be the margaritas. Sometimes that is self-love, right? But
talk to me a little bit more about that. That's where I struggle, because you're talking about, looking in the mirror, and man, I feel that, like, kind of the alter ego vibe where you're like stepping into the athlete, and I thrive off of kind of more the tough love thing. If I talk to myself like that, like that's Heather would shift some things. I feel you on that. Also, the self-love part, that's interesting because sometimes I'll use this self-love thing as an excuse of like, you just had back-to-back calls all day long and you're so tired and you're stressed out and this is the way you relax. And sometimes, yes, slash, sometimes I'm using that as an excuse and it's a habitual thing. And you end up doing that several nights a week as opposed to one. You know what I'm saying? So how do you advise like being nice to yourself, but also keeping that athlete mentality?
When you do your journaling, whenever you do that, when you sit with yourself in your meditation, whatever, when you're having a conversation with yourself, what has really helped me, and I lie to myself all the time, but when I get quiet with myself, that's when I ask, what is actually the thing that I deep down want?
Oh, Lord.
Is that to have margaritas one night a week? Is that to completely quit it? Is that to, what does that actually look like? Like in a dream scenario, what would my life actually look like?
Wow,
because once we've gotten that honest with ourselves, it's hard to go back because we've answered the question. So if we then don't do that, then it's like, oh, wait, I actually already had this conversation with myself. So maybe I shouldn't do this right now because my highest self, the best version of myself, wouldn't do this right now.
That
because then we also know, right, when it's the excuse and when it's like actually self-care. That's been a big thing for me as well. It's like sometimes I'll, go for weeks at a time and I'll be like, but it's self-love, like you were saying. And then it's like, oh, okay, it's time for that conversation with myself. What's actually best for me in this situation?
You're so right. We know deep down if we get still with ourselves.
Yeah. But the challenge is whether or not we're willing to. And oftentimes I'm not willing to. Like days have to go by where it's like nudging me, like it's time to get honest with yourself. And then the time comes and it's like, okay, all right, I'll sit down and do this and then I will commit.
I've been on a little venture lately where I'm kind of hyper obsessed with high performing people. I think it's really interesting. I'm in a position in my life where I do good, but then there's great, and there's a big difference between good and then great, right? And I had Todd Herman on the other day. He wrote Alter Ego Effect, incredible book.
You had Todd Herman on?
Yeah, it was awesome.
God.
And I was talking.
A fan.
Oh, I felt so freaking dumb when that thing was over with because I was like, wow, I have a lot to learn. But when he works
to your episode.
Yeah, when he works with, and it was reminding me of what you were saying with looking in the mirror, kind of this alternate identity that you don't have. So you kind of have to borrow, if I may, from, someone else or another source or whatever. And I'm curious your perception on this because I know there was one time in my life I had a Diet Coke addiction. Like, girl, like
I feel you.
Diet Coke, like I loved it. And I had it for years and years and years. And it was one day I woke up and I literally said, I am not going to drink this anymore. And I didn't. Wow. And it was literally this, and it was weird. It was just one day I got mad and I was so frustrated. And I was like, I'm not going to drink this shit anymore. And I stopped and I didn't want it. And it was unreal. But I've never mimicked that again. And talking to people like Todd and you and these high performers, I kind of feel that same sense where there's just something in your brain that's just like, I'm done. And it's this resolve. And I haven't been able to reverse engineer my Diet Coke situation. And I'm curious with you, like, if you had to put, an explanation of how that happens in your brain and is it repeatable? Because if I could access that same resolve again, I would, and I haven't yet. And I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, it's you did that thing where it's like you got so sick and tired of being miserable with your Diet Coke, right?
Addicted.
It was just one day, it was enough. It was enough.
Yes.
And the same exact thing happened with me being so sick and tired of having tried to get in shape and not really doing it. Like I was so tired of myself doing that. And the same, you were so tired of yourself drinking that Diet Coke. And I think for us to make a drastic shift like that, there has to be some sort of thing that makes us absolutely say enough is enough.
We have to get sick.
I do think there's a way for us to do it by yourself. It's writing down all the reasons why you have to stop whatever it is that you want to stop or start, whatever it is. Like, get so mad at, you don't have to be mad at yourself, but just like get so mad at this incredibly destructive habit. Like, just put a timer for 15 minutes and write down all the ways it's ruining your life and all the ways that if you stop doing it, it would just be, oh my God, it would literally save your life.
That's so good.
You have to get yourself there to make that drastic shift, because like I was talking about, like our brain, it's the best manipulator ever to make us choose the easy path. So we have to be strategic about it and like really do something so drastic that we're not willing to not make that change. And you've had that with the Diet Coke. So like once we've had, and I think we all have had that with something in our life. We've all tried at one point to just make that drastic change. And it's stepping into, okay, what was what happened? And then reconnecting with that part of ourselves that just is so tired of doing this thing that is not good for us. There's a reason why we keep wanting to stop. It's because we know it's not good for us. And also being really honest with ourselves about what is the life that I want to live. Like, I have one chance. And how am I going to live it? Am I going to continue to do things that don't feel good to me long term? Like, no. If we're honest with ourselves, no. Then there's certain things where it's like, for example, a margarita on a Tuesday. You know what? Being honest with yourself, you know what? That margarita brings me so much joy. And that is a part of the life that I want to live. I want a margarita every single Tuesday. And then that is your authentic, honest truth. And then it's like, okay, if that's what you want, stop being so mean to yourself about it. You've gotten honest with yourself about the fact that you want a margarita every Tuesday because it's giving you some sort of life joy.
Yeah.
Make that decision and stop bothering yourself about or being hard on yourself about it. It's like, what if we just dare in every area of our life to be so honest with ourselves? It's like there's never going to be any regret or any half-assed anything. We're just going to live our life in the way that we actually want to be living it.
You are just incredible. I've had so many freaking ahas talking to you right now. Like, what's coming up for me is this whole idea of like, what do you want? As simple as that sounds, I feel like I'll speak for myself. I've lived my life so much where there's all these good ideas and all these opinions, and sometimes sorting through what you really want versus what is expected of you or what other people tell you you should want. I know that sounds like it should be so simple and innate, but getting so clear, like you said earlier, on what is my dream life? What is my dream situation? What is my dream body? What do I really want? Do I really want XYZ or do I want this? And like, damn, girl. I know, that's just like, you think that would be like a super obvious thing, but man.
Yeah, but it is, because we kind of think we know what we want, but that's why I said journaling was one of the things. It's because it's
I'm a
really
journaler,
where we can
big.
get, I can see that. It's where we get, honest with ourselves, and it's so easy to not. I can totally spend a full week journaling and kind of lie to myself, because that's what our brain wants, like natural. That's our natural instinct, right? Because the other thing is hard. It's harder. But the fun thing, like you were saying, once we make the decision, then it's not easy. Then it is easy. Like, you didn't want the Diet Coke anymore. It was just,
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. What is behaviorally for you? What was one of the hardest things for you to break free from? You knew you
Sugar.
wanted to stop sugar. That was it.
Oh my God. I still have a sugar.
You didn't even hesitate. You didn't even hesitate.
No. Oh my God. When it's 7 p.m., everything sugar could go down in 0.2 seconds. Like,
what did you do?
Like you, I said no.
Yeah.
And because I had made that very clear decision, it was like, it's just no battling. The hard part is the battle, right? It's like, oh, should I have one more cookie or should I not?
Yeah.
Should I have it or not? But once you make the decision, should I just have a little sip of Diet Coke? It's like, but once you've made the decision, it's like, nope. And for anyone listening, for some people, what can be helpful is like having an accountability partner. Really, like promising someone else, I'm not going to do this. It could even go as far as like, I'll send you a certain amount of money, and if I do this, you won't send them back to me. But if I don't, then
Yeah.
you send them, whatever. It can be that. For others, it's enough to just have it within. It could be having some sort of like, if I stick to this, I'll take myself on vacation. Like there's different ways that we can motivate ourselves. But I think, yeah, everyone's different in that way. But having some sort of goal in mind, I think is, even if it's just a dream, to be whatever it is that it'll free us from when we get rid of those habits. But yeah, sugar, also just eating a bunch of everything I could put my eyes on. I've always been a food lover. And then being consistent with my workouts. Like on the days I didn't want to, like, nope, you promised yourself, you got to show up. And it's like making it to the gym, just making it through the warm up, just focusing on one set. Like I still will have days, every now and then where it's like, I really don't feel it today. And then it's just focusing on one set at a time. Like we can focus on one set. Like I can do 60 seconds of work. That's fine. And then once that's done, 60 more seconds.
Yeah.
And then once we get going, it's usually tends to be easier.
Yeah.
Get easier. Yeah.
I wanted to shift a little bit gears towards kind of the last half hour conversation into, your decision to go and create content around all of this. I feel as though the fitness industry is kind of harsh. There's a lot of, I don't know, people, this is the right way, no carbs, no, this diet, that, or whatever. And then bringing your voice into this space and holding your own. And you've done so well, my friend. Oh my gosh. Like your content is so interesting. And I love the video with your mom that you brought into your YouTube channel. It was so neat. Like you're really creative. And I feel like, you've really done a great job of bleeding through your personality and your heart, along with your knowledge. And I'm just curious, kind of, did you use this same mentality that you used in fitness to start creating content? Because it's not easy, man. Sometimes people, they have that desire, just like they might with fitness, to use their voice or whatever, but finding their place in such a quote saturated world, especially like if they're in an industry like fitness where there's all these opinions, man. I'm just curious about your journey just in that space.
Yeah. So actually a similar thing happened. I was so nervous to put myself out there. So nervous. I've always been so afraid of people's judgment. And with self-love, that goes away a little bit more, because when you learn to accept all of you, then it doesn't hurt when other people, think differently, because, we all have our own perceptions and everyone is allowed to their opinion. But if I accept myself, then I can show up authentically and be myself and be okay with people who maybe disagree. And then, but I do want to say my approach to fitness is the opposite of what you were just saying, that majority of fitness influencers speak about. Like, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think every human has different ways, approaches that work for them. And some people are going to love one way, so other people are going to love another way. There's really no right or wrong. The only thing that's right is the thing that feels good to you.
You're right.
And that's really my approach. Then, of course, if people ask me like what I do, I'll gladly share that. But it's just so different for every person. But when you were saying my approach to getting into content creation, I kind of did the same thing as when I wanted to get in shape. I had, for a full year or longer, wanted to start, and I just hadn't because I was so afraid. And again, it was one of those things, you know what? I'm going to do this. I made myself the challenge that I was going to start. I started on Instagram, and every single day I was going to put out a post, and I did that for years.
Every day. Wow.
Every single day. And I created regular posts, workouts and sharing some tips sometimes. And then something that I realized I was very afraid of was speaking in front of the camera. And when I realized how terrified I was of that, I was asking myself, Pernilla, what is it that you want? And I've always wanted to use my voice to help other people better their lives and motivate others to, get themselves to do it. And so when I realized that, and I got honest with myself about the fact that that's what I wanted to do, I realized, well, then you have to learn how to speak to people, because I would stutter and it was so hard for me to get words out. And as we all know, and you're an incredible, like everything, I'm blown away by the way that you speak and the way that you hold a podcast like this. I think it's so inspiring for me to see, and it's people like you that I'm inspired by. And at the time I was like, well, if I want to one day be able to do what they are doing, I got to practice. And so
Word.
for a full year, I set myself the challenge that every day I had to show up on my story and
Good for
create some sort
you.
of story that talk about something that had been helpful, something that was going on in my life that hopefully could bring value to
Yeah.
someone else. And practicing throughout that year, just on like a little story, really helped me at least become more comfortable with speaking in front of the camera, because it
Mhm.
just was not comfortable for me at first. And just for anyone listening, like if there's something that you kind of deep down want to do, but you're like, I'm terrible at this, well, you won't be if you just show up every single day for a year, or at least you're going to, by the end of the year, feel so much better. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. You're not going to want to do it. But if you stick to it, if you commit and stick to it, you will be a different human by the end of the year, or like a year from today. Because I mean, with
Preach.
any challenge we set ourselves, we grow in the process, right? Like, and we become a
Yeah.
human that we can't even comprehend or understand that version of ourselves before it exists. So we have to get uncomfortable. We have to push ourselves to
Mm.
do that in order for us to get to that next level that is
Preach, girl.
unknown in the now.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought up the face on camera thing. There's so much resistance around that. And I'm not saying everybody should, get on Instagram or share their face or whatever. I think it's speaking to a deeper thing in us that need to be healed. Like, what does it mean to have your face on camera? What does it mean to hear your voice? Like, like you
Yeah.
said, do you feel comfortable in your skin? And it really has nothing to do with the medium more than just, you know, like you said, loving yourself and being cool with who you are right now.
Yeah.
I'm curious with this stage. I know, I think it was a couple months ago, I might be wrong on this, that you were kind of challenging yourself again physically and really, I'm sure you're always doing that, but you were documenting a little bit of, I'm so ignorant, girl, with all this health stuff. I don't even want to say 'cause I'll mess it
Yeah.
up, but I know like your
Eh,
statistics and your stats at the
yeah,
doctor.
body. Are you talking about maybe? So I've done a few challenges, but you're probably talking about I did a experiment to see if I could lower my body fat percentage and up my
Yes.
muscle mass. Yes, and I did an
Yes.
experiment like that where I went all in for a full month, and it was like so exciting, so challenging, but incredible. And I lowered my body fat percentage with 3% in a month, and up my muscle mass an incredible amount during that month. And I got all these DEXA scans and body fat tests and stuff. And it was really, really exciting. And I do that on my YouTube channel a lot, like do different
You're so
challenges.
awesome.
I just love it. So for a long time, it was hard for me to find my way on YouTube, like how to create videos that both were impactful, but also brought me joy.
Right.
And
Right.
this challenging myself in some way and then documenting the process is so fun.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, is kind of like this next, I alluded earlier to from good to great. And I feel like you've achieved greatness in this area, and you're even pushing, and I don't even know what word I would use other than greater excellence.
Oh, thank
You're
you.
you just keep pushing higher and higher. And I know there's like this quote, and quotes are usually generalized, where it says, what got you here won't get you there. And I'm curious, with your level, if the same mentality still works, kind of like that, looking yourself in the mirror and I'm sick of being this. If those same tips that got you from not in shape to great shape, are you still using those tactics where you're at now, or what's the
Yeah,
tricks there now?
I actually am, because I think
Same
we
thing.
all, yeah, because it's like this is our new norm, right? Whenever we level up, we get used to our new norm. It's the same, like we once wanted this car, and then we get the car and it's so exciting, but then after a year it's just our car. And then when we want that next level car, same thing has to happen. We're gonna have to dream about the car, save up
Mm,
for the car, test drive the car, and then the next so it's like, it's kind of like life, right? It's kind of how they say that, you know billionaires aren't necessarily happier than they were when they were just millionaires,
right.
or were broke sometimes, because it's not about the level we've gotten to. Every level we
Mm,
become used to, it becomes our new norm, and then it's like we have to go through the same process again to level up to the next version of ourselves. And but I think that once you've done it once, of course you can then step into it maybe better again.
yeah.
And sometimes when we reach that goal that we've always wanted, it can be really challenging for us to find that same excitement and inspiration to get to
Interesting.
that next, because like we were talking about with the Diet Coke and my cookies or sugar addiction, it's like we have to get to that point where it's like it's enough is enough. And once we've leveled a certain level of success within some field, then it's hard to get that, oh, I'm sick and tired of this, for us to get to that next level. Like it actually
that's
can get
true.
harder to get
That
to,
makes
to
sense.
get to that. Yeah.
How's your friendships and relationships changed since kind of going on the more dedicated path, I guess? Because I
Mm.
know, again, I'm throwing up my experience on you. Maybe it's not been your experience, but I feel like times I've wanted to like level up in X area, it's caused strain sometimes in relationships because folks don't get it, or they're like, you're being too hard
Yeah.
on yourself. What are you doing? Right. And you're
Yeah.
like, man, no, Paul, this is actually what I want with my life. Did you experience
Yeah.
that? How do you navigate those
Absolutely.
relations? Okay. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so much. And it has been a challenge, especially if it's people that maybe weren't that close, then it's easier. But when it's people that
Right.
are really close to you, for me, it has really affected me. But it affects me in areas that I haven't fully all around healed or understood myself within, loved myself within, because once I know exactly why I'm doing it. I stand proudly in the fact that I'm doing it, regardless of what anyone else thinks. I
Mm,
will no longer be affected by their opinions. But if it's something that it's maybe still a new goal, I haven't
God,
maybe
that's so good.
fully like accepted or understood that I'm capable of it. That's when it's weak. That's when I think it's really hard, and a majority of the time maybe necessary that we don't bring other people into that.
Mm,
Like, let's say we've set a goal, we've started on the journey, that we can say, like, if people are like, don't you want a cake, we don't have to go into details as to why we don't want the cake. We can just shake it off and maybe be like, you know what, I'll share that in a few months. I'm just trying out something right now.
yeah.
It's okay to keep that little dream, little desire to ourselves till it becomes whole. Because if we know that we're going to be affected by someone else's opinion or different beliefs than the ones that we have, then it's okay to keep it to ourselves. Yeah, I think that's important,
That's so
because
good.
people who aren't living your life, they will not understand, and they don't have to, right? They don't
Yeah.
have to. I think if we're in a relationship or we want our parents to understand, but it's our vision. It's not their
Mm,
vision. And we can't make them see it. I think really, like, even when I started content creation, many people around me didn't understand why I would do it. And because I was still in the building phase, I hadn't got success with it yet. That was so hard for me. But
yeah.
once I succeeded, or people, my family, for example, saw that you're actually making a living off of doing this, then they could see my vision. Yeah, we have to not maybe let it into, like, we can talk with them about other things if they're important to us. Of course, sometimes friendships completely go two different ways when you're evolving a lot as a human. But if it's
Yeah.
people that you are just not willing to let go of, you can keep certain things to yourself, or like
That's
share
so
that with
good.
other people that do get it.
Yeah. I love that everything that you've said tonight has just been looping back around to yourself, your own resolve, and your own personal responsibility. Because I'll tell I'm a self girl, like it's easy to displace things, right? Like people don't understand, or I don't have support, or blah, blah, blah. And you've just brought it home again and again and again. What do you want? What resolve do you have? And sitting in that and getting really, really grounded. And your content, everything that you preach is this idea that if we give ourselves that space, we'll be shocked at what we can actually do and actually accomplish. I love it. I love it. Thank you. I have one more final question for you. I want to honor the time I asked you for. But before then, where would you like to direct our listeners to? I know sometimes you do challenges and so forth.
Yeah,
Do you have anything coming up that you want to direct our folks to?
I just share a ton of content. I have my YouTube channel and my Instagram, TikTok, and then I also have my podcast, which is where we
Woo
go
woo.
deep. So I'm Pernilla on all platforms, and then my podcast is called Challenge Your Norm, because we got to
Mm.
challenge our norm in order to grow and
Give me a
create our
taste of
best
some of this
lifestyle.
deep stuff. So, like, what's something like that somebody would come to you and they're just trying to get some abs or something, and then you're going deep on something else? What are some of the things that you kind of tackle in that?
Oh my gosh, there's so many directions, but it's getting to understand why do you want that? And also, I want to touch on this because a lot of people,
Yeah.
myself included, I wanted abs, right? That was like, oh, I want abs, and people want
Mhm.
abs. But the coolest thing is that people usually approach me because of that. And I was guilty of that myself. That's what we want. But what we
Mhm.
realize is it's going back to the same thing I've been preaching about during this entire interview. But it's like, what happens in that journey is that you realize that you're capable of so much more than you thought. Because if you want abs, you have to be consistent with your diet. You have to show up at the gym when you don't want to. And in the process, the journey of getting those abs, that's when you suddenly become a completely new version of
Different
yourself.
person.
And the coolest thing is, like, I'm a fitness girl, yes, but what I'm the most passionate about is that when you do that, when you actually make that happen, it compound effects in all other areas of your life. It compound effects in
Mhm.
how you show up in relationships, in your work. Like, if you're used to procrastinating the gym, there's a chance that you procrastinate other places in your
Preach.
life. And
Yeah.
then you're walking around like procrastinating things, where when you show yourself that you have discipline, self discipline, you start having that with your work. You get so much more done, and you
Mhm.
just show up for things, with things, in a different way. And I just think that's the most cool thing, is that people show up for abs and then they realize, okay, my whole life just changed because of this one
That's so good.
little thing I wanted.
That's so
So
good.
yeah,
Okay, I lied. I have one more little little
I love it.
question.
I love it.
There's some really weird, I don't want to say weird because that has a negative connotation, different techniques that I've been hearing about from some of these high performing people when they're like working out. I know there was the other day on the show, somebody was talking about, sometimes runners, they'll imagine like a hand on their back kind of pushing them forward, of somebody that they admire, or we mentioned alter ego. I've been doing some researching about board of directors. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Napoleon Hill, like some of these, like, it's just some crazy like little mind things that high performing people do. And I'm curious, if is there anything that you've practiced or done that kind of pushes you past your own mental barrier, whether it's a alter ego or the hand or any kind of
Yeah.
weird things you do. I love this
Yeah,
stuff.
I've already shared that I talk to myself, so that's a thing. I
Dude, I
definitely
think that's
talk to
normal.
myself.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah, and then alter ego as well. Like, if
Yeah.
if I've happened to come across someone really incredibly talented in dancing, then when I show up into a dance class, I'll like literally
Mhm.
step into becoming that person, because it just makes you dance with a completely different confidence. And the same
Yeah.
at the gym. If
Yeah.
you've scrolled on Instagram and you found someone really crazy fit, inspiring, stepping into them, it comes back to this thing of like how I was saying, identifying myself as an athlete. I
Yeah.
usually had like some athlete in mind, like how would they think
Mhm.
right now? How would they act? And if you embody that while you're working out, or doing any other like artistic task, or anything that you do throughout your day, if you embody this person that you're crazy inspired by, it's crazy how much more
Mhm.
capable, able
It's wild.
you are. It's wild. It's really powerful. I really would love for anyone listening to give that a try. Whatever area it is that you want to grow within right now, think of a person that you're crazy inspired by and step into them next time you're doing that task, whatever that is.
I love
It
it.
will blow your mind. It's
I love it.
crazy. Yeah.
I love it. Well, we'll make sure your show, your Instagram, YouTube, website is all linked up in the show notes. You can click over there, check her out, give her a follow. Please, please, please. She's the best. But Pernilla, I'm curious. This is our last question I've been asking folks. I've been really trying to encourage myself and our listeners to ask more questions and become more curious. Sometimes when we feel like we don't know the answer to something, or the fact of questioning things is shameful, or it means we have doubt or whatever, as opposed to, as Elizabeth Gilbert says, asking questions is a creative life. Curiosity is a creative life, right? So I'm
Mhm.
curious with you, what is something in your life? It could be fitness related, it could be about content, it could be something silly about like why people like brown sugar Pop-Tarts. I think they're disgusting. I have no idea why people like those things. But what is like a question that in this season of your life you're really wrestling with that you don't have the answer to?
The question that keeps like popping in my head is like,
That's the
what's the
one
right
then.
thing to do? But it's so
Ooh.
broad. What's the right thing to do?
Mm,
And it's not about just one thing in my life. There's
mm.
so many options, so many opportunity constantly, and directions that you can go. And it's like, I want to do so many things in my life, and sometimes it's very difficult to figure out what is the right one.
Girl.
And yeah, that's just what keeps coming up, I think.
I'm
And
glad you
it's
shared that. I really resonate with that because I don't know about you growing up, but I was taught like there was a right and wrong with things. And
mm,
sometimes there is no right and wrong and it's like all like
yeah.
good. And so how do you start choosing? I get that.
Yeah. And, I love, that's why I'm such a
Mm,
journaler, like journaling on it. And that doesn't mean that you come to the conclusion to the right one, but all you can ever do, right, is just follow
yeah.
what your intuition is telling you or follow what feels the most right and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
learn as you go.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Well,
Oh my
Pernilla, you
God.
are incredible. I'm
You are
so
incredible. I
grateful I
just want
got
to
to
say thank you so much for having me on. I'm
this was
crazy
awesome.
inspired by you. You know how I said I really want to work on I want to become an incredible podcaster, and you are an incredible podcaster. And just speaking with you today,
Great God, thank you.
I feel so
Thank you.
inspired, and I have so much admiration for what you've done, and just continuously showing up, your patience, and your vision for where it is that you want to go. It's
Thank you.
incredibly inspiring, and I'm so honored that you wanted to have this conversation with me
That's so
today.
sweet. You're the best.